So nice to meet you, and thanks for inviting me. I spend a lot of time to explain about the seed vault for different audiences, and young people are among our target audiences because our task is very long-term oriented, and it's important that young people know about it and will support it in the future. So just a few points about seeds. I think you all know that we mostly eat seeds. Maybe you know that we mostly eat seeds. They are very important as a food source. Seeds are very nutritious. They can be stored. They make plants able to survive unfavorable conditions during winters, during dry seasons, and so on. Seeds made it possible to develop modern farming equipment, machinery, and so on. And it's also containing genetic information and new combinations of plants occur when a mother plant and the father plant cross, and we get the new combinations in the seeds. And there are many different kinds of seeds. All these are different seeds from different species, and seeds is a perfect storage for genetic information, which is the reason why we keep them in gene banks. I have one slide showing animals. This illustrates why we take care of genetic diversity. As you know, you don't find dogs in the nature. You don't find wild animals like the dogs, but you find the genes. And in principle, these three animals here are wolves. You don't find the dogs in the nature, but you find the genes that made it possible to breed these dog breeds. You find them in the wild wolf populations, which is quite amazing, I must say. And it's the same with plants. You don't find maize, wild maize in the nature, but you find the genes in the wild plants. In this case, you find the genes for maize in the wild plant Tripsacum, which is growing in the Central America. And it's the same for wild cabbage types. You don't find these vegetables in the wild, but actually on the shores in your country, I think, around the Mediterranean, you can find these wild brassica plants. And these wild plants contain the genes that made it possible to breed normal head cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, kale, broccoli, and cauliflower. All these genes are present in wild plants. And here you have the so-called global centers for the origin of crop species. These are the most important regions of the world where you find the wild plants that made it possible to breed cultivated plants. And these are also the areas of the world where agriculture first was developed. And you can see in Mexico and in the Central America, you find maize and beans. You all probably know that potatoes comes from Peru and Southern America, tomatoes also from there. And then we have the area around the Mediterranean Sea, where in the east is an important area called the Fertile Crescent, where we believe that agriculture first was developed on the basis of wild plants found in nature, mainly wild grasses with large seeds. So this is the history of what we call domestication. Farmers in the first years, they found wild plants, or actually before agriculture evolved, they found wild plants. They harvested the seeds, and in this case, they ate wild barley seeds. Then they started to cultivate. Farmers improved the plants so they could cultivate them in their fields, and farmers genotypes, farmers varieties are called land races, and modern breeding produced modern cultivars. So why do we conserve crop diversity? And the short question is that the diversity of crop plants is the raw material that plant breeders and scientists need to develop agriculture, produce new plant varieties, to secure future food production. We have a changing climate on the planet, and we need new plant varieties to fight new growing conditions, to increase food production, to fight diseases and pests, and so on. So, because it is important to conserve these genetic resources, gene banks all over the world conserve seeds containing different varieties, different genetic combinations, and make this material available for breeding and science. I'm working at the Nordic Genetic Resource Center, which is a regional gene bank for the Nordic countries, and we have seed samples of interest for the Nordic agriculture. Mainly, we have a collection of 35,000 samples of a bit more than 500 different species. So we are moving to Svalbard. You can see the map of Europe there. Svalbard is a group of islands midway between northern Norway and the North Pole. And you can see a more detailed map. In the middle there, you have the city of Longyearbyen, which is the place where the seed vault is located. Here are some pictures from Svalbard. It's a very exotic place. It's very cold there. Here are some pictures from summertime. You can meet the polar bears in the streets, not actually in the streets, but outside the streets, outside the village, and sometime you can meet them also quite close to the center of Longyearbyen. And this is a very dangerous animal, so if you move outside Longyearbyen, you have to protect yourself wearing a gun or follow someone with a gun. There are some nice flowers there during summertime. There are a special breed of reindeer in Longyearbyen. You can meet them everywhere, and the grouse is there. The bird is not very wild. They run between your feet when you are walking outside in the nature there. So it's a very different place from the Europe, other places in Europe. Longyearbyen, Svalbard, was established as a coal mining place. There are coal layers there, and coal mining started about 100 years ago, and it's still going on. Supplying the power plant in Svalbard with electricity, and it has now been decided that coal mining should stop, and the community in Longyearbyen is working on how to develop other energy sources replacing the coal. Another couple of pictures from Longyearbyen. You can climb the mountains around the city, and it looks like this. There are some fishing boats fishing around the islands, and there is also a quite large satellite reading station where satellites passing over the North Pole information can be downloaded and distributed to users all around the world. Svalbard is also important for science and education. The picture below here is from a village called Ny-Hellesund, which is a pure science village where scientists from all over the world go and study nature, environment, climate change, glaciers, and so on. And I also think Italy has scientists there. The upper picture is from the University Center in Longyearbyen, and students from all countries in the world go there. Also, Italian students are often there and study nature, environment, and climate in the Arctic on this university. So that could be something you could consider when you have finished the high school. There are also a lot of tourists in Svalbard. Many cruise ships go there. You can climb down below the glaciers and experience snow ice caves like the picture to the right. You can eat whale and seal on board the cruise ships. And the northernmost brewery in the world is also located in Svalbard. So you can taste beer at the northernmost Svalbard brewery. And there are a couple of Russian settlements in Svalbard. The two upper pictures are from Pyramiden, which is an abandoned coal mining village, and no one lives there, but tourists can go there. The picture from below is from Barentsburg, where Russians still mine coal for the industry. So then, the history of conserving seeds in Svalbard started in 1984. The Nordic Gene Bank put a steel container into a coal mine there. There is permafrost in the coal mine, -3, -4 degrees, which secure that the seeds stay frozen, which is important for conserving the viability of the seeds. So copies of the Nordic seed collection was placed in this steel container in 1984. And this gained a lot of attention worldwide. Several newspapers in many countries wrote about the seeds of life that were banked in an Arctic coal mine, as you can see here from China Daily. This is a picture from inside this steel container. We had the safety base collection in the container, and we also put in some seed samples for testing the viability of the seeds over time. I will just make this very brief. The solution for conserving duplicates of seeds in Svalbard gained a lot of international attention, and after some years of discussions, Norway was asked to investigate, would it be possible for Norway to build a global seed storage in Svalbard, not only for Nordic seeds, but for seeds from all other countries as well. And Norway decided to build the seed vault in June 2006, and the seed vault was opened in February 2008. So the Svalbard Global Seed Vault has two objectives. One objective is to conserve security duplicates of unique seed samples conserved in gene banks. It's important to stress that the seed vault is not a gene bank. It's just a storage for conserving backup copies of seeds that are conserved in gene banks. And it's also contributing to public awareness about the importance of conservation and use of plant genetic resources. And that's why I'm talking to you today, to convince you and tell you why it is important to conserve seeds and conserve genetic diversity of plants. This is a quote from the Secretary General of the United Nations. He called the seed vault, "This is a gift to humanity and a symbol of peace." And this is a quote we use in our presentations. So why Svalbard? It's a cold place, of course. It was inspired by the Nordic solution for backupping seeds in this coal mine, and it is good infrastructure there. It's an international airport. It is municipal. It is public services there. It's police. It's roads. You can hire cars. There are companies that can assist us and all the operations. And not at least, Norway had the resources to build it, and the commitment, and also countries and gene banks all over the world trust that Norway and our partners take good care of the seeds. So because it's important to say that the seeds that are conserved in the seed vault, they remain the property of the gene banks. Seeds are never touched by us. The seed boxes are sealed, and we bring them into the seed vault, and the owner gene bank can get them back if they need them. Here, a drawing of how it looks like. What you have seen from pictures from outside is just a concrete building at the end of this tunnel, and deep inside the mountain, there are 3 seed chambers that are artificially cooled down to -18, which is the optimal temperature for conserving seeds. And there are, of course, advanced monitoring and surveillance systems, alarms, locks, solid doors, and etc. So this is very safe. Here's some pictures from inside. It looks like an ordinary warehouse, but when you think about what's in all these boxes and where they come from, it's quite amazing. So one of the 3 seed chambers has been filled up, and we have started to fill up the second chamber, and 1/3 chamber is still available and not taken into use yet. I can skip most of the formalities, but just say that the seed vault is owned by the Norwegian government. It's managed by my organization, the Nordic Genetic Resource Center, and we cooperate with this international organization, Crop Trust, which is supporting gene banks all over the world for the conservation and use of genetic resources and seeds, and also they support the management of the seed vault. It's free of charge. Gene banks can send seeds to the seed vault without any cost. They can get the seeds back if they need them, and the seeds are owned by the gene banks. I just skip this. It's too complicated this time. Here are some statistics. Over the years since 2008, more than 1.3 million samples have been deposited. One gene bank have requested seeds to be returned. I will come back to that. Today, there are 1.2 million samples in the seed vault, representing more than 6,000 different species. 98 depositor gene banks have sent seeds, and the seeds are coming from more than 200 different countries all around the world. Here is a curve showing how the content of the seed vault has increased during the years. So now it's about 1.2 million samples, as I said. And here are the most important crops. There are more than 200,000 different samples of wheat and 175 samples of rice, and then more than 100,000 samples of barley. And then you see the other important crops, seed multiplied crops, sorghum, bean, soybean, maize, chickpeas, and oats, and rye, and peas, and peanuts, and so on. In the other end of this graph, you would see that some species have only one or two samples of seeds inside the seed vault. As I said, only one gene bank has requested seeds to be returned, and this was the International Center for Agricultural Research in Dry Areas. Formerly, they had headquarters and gene bank in Aleppo in Syria. Due to the war, the seeds there were inaccessible, and they decided to establish new gene banks in Morocco and Lebanon. We sent all the 116,000 seed samples back to ICARDA units in these countries, and they established new gene banks there. And already today, just a few years after we returned the seeds, they have sent more than 117,000 seed samples back to the seed vault, which is a success story for the seed vault, illustrating the need for a seed vault like this. And despite the war in Syria, it's a sad story, sad event. It shows the need for a seed vault like this. Anyone can enter the computer and see what's the content of the seed vault at any time. You get statistics of this, and you can see just today it's 98 depositors, 6,042 species, and 1.2 million samples. You can search more details, and this is a search showing seed samples that have been deposited from an Italian gene bank. It's actually today only 2 seed samples from the University of Lombardy Seed Bank, and those 2 samples of maize are listed in the bottom of this picture. But now I am revealing one secret for you. You are the first to hear that the Italian National Gene Bank, Institute of Biosciences and Bioresources at the National Research Council in Italy will send seeds in June. They will send 1 box with 192 accessions of wheat, different wheat species. Triticum is the scientific name of wheat. So you should not tell this to anyone, but I would guess that in June you will read about this event in Italian newspapers. So just to end with some pictures showing how we work. Gene banks pack seeds like this in watertight envelopes. Seeds need to be very well dried and then packed like this. They pack them in boxes like this and send the boxes to Svalbard. We scan all the seed boxes at the security devices at the airport. And here you can see on the screen 2 seed boxes that do not have any other items inside, just seed packets. We bring the seeds to the seed vault. Sometimes the weather can be like this. This is taken now in February, and we have to walk in deep snow and carry all boxes inside like this. Inside, we had to sort them. We put on labels showing the identity of the gene bank, the number of boxes, and the position in the shelves. And we bring all the boxes inside and put them on the shelves. And I think that's it. These are pictures from different seed boxes, reminding us that seeds are coming from different countries and that many different people, scientists, gene bank staff, put a lot of efforts in producing these seeds and send them to Svalbard. So, I think that's it. Thanks for your attention. Any questions? Thank you. Thanks a lot. That's very kind of you.
Thank you. And now we try to understand if there are some questions. Qualcuno ha qualche domanda?
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Ricardo, and my question is, how much time does it take to create one of these seed bank?
Yeah, I think the construction work started in 2007, and it was finalized, and the seed vault opened in February 2008. This was a bit too quick because the quality of certain parts of the seed vault was not good enough. So there has been some improvement of the construction in 2018 and 2019. So now the construction is very solid, very prepared for a long future. So in total, I think all the work took about 2.5 years.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Andrea, and my question is the same. Is in the in the in the in the place at the Svalbard. They are the seeds of the culture plants or the seeds of the all plants in the world.
A good question. The seed vault is and gene banks for crop plants. They conserve seeds of crops, cultivated plants. But we also consider wild plants containing genes of crop plants to be included. So we call them crop wild relatives. So if you remember my picture from Brassica on the Mediterranean shores, this is a wild plant, but it is the kind of ancestor of crop plants. So this is also included in gene banks and in the seed vault, but purely wild plants, rare species that do not have any interest as crops, they are not included. Other programs are taking care of those.
I heard that you had some problem with uploading some years ago, maybe in 2017, with melting ice for the climate change. So have you solved that problem?
Yes, the problem was that the seed vault tunnel was not completely watertight. In 2018 and 19, we built a new watertight tunnel. So the problem is solved. And it was not melting ice and permafrost that caused the problem. It was an extremely heavy rainfall in Svalbard just in the autumn 2016. And when the tunnel was not watertight, some of this rain water came into the tunnel. But the problem has been solved, yes. Just to comment on the previous question, it is correct that many plants risk to be extinct, and some rare plants can be found in gene banks and in the seed vault if they are considered to be related to crops. But there are other programs taking care of rare and threatened plants. For instance, we have the Millennium Seed Project at Kew Gardens in UK. They conserve all seeds of all threatened plants around the world. So if some plants is going extinct, seeds can hopefully be retrieved from that collection.
I'm Rosalba. I would ask if there is if you have a connection with germplasm banks of the different states, nations, later. Because I thought you have, but from what you say, or maybe what I understood, there is no connection between the Svalbard Center and the Germoplasm Bank of different nations.
Yes, that should be, if I understand your question correctly, that's a quite major misunderstanding, because all these 98 institutes that have sent seeds to the seed vault, they are national gene banks all over the world. So we cooperate with them. They keep the primary collections, and for safety purposes, they send duplicates to the seed vault. And when the National Gene Bank of Italy will send the first seeds in June, this will be gene bank number 99.
Another question. You maintain this or the seeds, but how many years the seeds maintain their germinality power? So how many after how many years you have to replace to renewal the seeds?
That depends on several things, on the species, on the quality of the seeds, on the maturing. Was it a wet year? Was it a dry year? Was the quality of the seeds good? Were the seeds dried properly and packed watertight properly? So that's, I would say that seeds of some species of good quality, packed well, they can stay alive for several hundred years, some of them probably more than 1,000 years.
Okay, we want to thank you so much to be with you today, and I hope we had understand more about biodiversity and seed conservation and your job. We were really honored to host you, and I want to thank you from side of all the students.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and maybe some of you will I will meet you in Svalbard at the university there.
Would be really nice. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Bye.